And I realized that I had just finished 4 years of school, graduated with a 4.0, top of my class, and it was over. But it wasn't the accomplishment of achieving the graduation and being noted for all the things that I did there. What I wanted to note was, had it not been for my mother being convinced that I needed to be there, I would have never been there in the first place. I would have never been there in the first place. See, the way that story actually starts is when I was in high school, I was a decent kid. I did well, but I had no plans to attend college. I said, when I graduate, I'm going to be like, ta-da. And it'll work out. My mama said, ta-da, no. Here's what you're not going to do. You're going to college. And I was like, yeah, I mean, it sounds like a good idea, but I don't really want to go. She said, no, I am convinced you're going to school because God told me when you were born that great things were going to happen for your life. So there's no way you're going to sit in my house and suck up all my good air, eat up all my good groceries when God has a good plan for your life. She said, I am convinced. There's a funny thing about confidence. Confidence is contagious, but so is lack of confidence. What are you spreading at your house? So we go back and we look at this story of 1 Kings chapter 19 through 21, and we learn of these two men, one by the name of Elijah and another by the name of Elisha. Elijah was at the top of this mountain, right? He'd done some things, and he comes down off the mountain, and he walks by. Elisha throws his cloak around him, and Elisha decides to go with him. It's a funny thing that Elisha decided just from him throwing his cloak that he should follow this man named Elijah. You know, in life, we must realize that there are some decisions we have to make, and some of the most difficult decisions you'll make is determining which bridge to cross and which bridge to burn. He said, I've got to go and follow this man named Elijah. And that's the funny thing about making decisions to move. You know, we all have the fact that we need to make a decision. Your future is happening, as a matter of fact, right now. How long will you sit and look at the clock doing what it does and you do nothing at all? We all have a job to do, but are you convinced enough that you need to get up and do it? And so Elisha decides, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and go with him. And what makes me really, and I haven't got to first point yet, when I'm thinking about this, remember I had you circle the number 12. This Bible says that when Elijah came down and met Elisha, that Elisha was working in the 12th team, right? Which means he was the last team that was of all the teams that were working. Why would he choose the man on the last team to be the first person in line? Something that I want you guys to realize is being convinced about what God has for your life. It does not matter where you are. It matters where he's taking you. So if you're convinced because other people are convinced, that's good, but it won't matter until you're convinced yourself. So why are you convinced is point number 2. I'm trying to tell you guys how to make it in life. You got to understand, one, you have to be convinced of what you want to do. It can't be what someone's told you, but something that you believe. What are you convinced of? Second, why are you convinced? And here's the third one. What will you do with your conviction? It's one thing to be convinced that you're a great writer. It's another thing to say, hey, I'm going to start writing. But it's another thing to actually do it. When will you realize that good will sustain you, but great will make you successful? Right? And so some of us are living a pacifier life. We're living in pacifier life when milk is just downstairs in the refrigerator. Every new day is a new year for you. Why are you waiting for January for it to be a new year? You know, that bothers me when people say, you know what, I'm going to start working out at the first of the year. Tomorrow is the first of your new year. Your new year starts when you decide to start. When will you start? If you're convinced enough, you'll do it. Go back, right? So Elisha returned with his oxen and slaughtered them. He used the wood from the plow to build a fire to roast their flesh. Listen, let me lay this on you real quick. Maybe the reason your plan A isn't working is because you have a plan B. Elisha says, listen, I'm going to go with this man and follow him because I believe that he's a man of God. So much so that anything else that I might have thought was going to work out for my good, I'm going to completely burn it so I can't even go back that direction. I can't even look back that direction. I may have gone back and looked at it, but I burnt it up because I can't go back. There are people here who are leaving their back door open because they said, I might need to go back through it again. Listen, if you're convinced, you can burn that door all the way up because you won't even need it again. The reason your plan A isn't working It's because you've got a plan B. I don't know if you saw this article, but this past week, there was a story that was printed that this centenarian, right? Which, big word, she's 100 years old. 100-year-old woman, she got into the pin relays. She lines up with a bunch of other older individuals, right? Can you believe this? They're still running. That should motivate somebody in here. Hold on. Look at me, I need to do something, right? She lines up against the line. The gun goes off. Pow! They take off at full speed, which is really not that fast. They take off running, and they're going down this track, right? 30 seconds goes by, 40 seconds goes by. Everybody completes this race pretty quickly, except for one lady, Ida. Ida's in last place. She's 100. She can't run that fast. But here she going for it. And everyone, I looked in the news and everybody was like, man, praise Ida. Ida ran the race. Ida finished the race. She's 100 years old. She won the race. She didn't win the race. She finished the race. She's 5'3", 100 years old, and she did the 100-yard dash in 1 minute and 17 seconds. Yay, Ida. But then there was one little tagline that made me think, and I'm just going to bless you real quick. It said, Ida came in last place, but now holds the world record for her age group. Ida came in last place, but holds the world record for her age group. I'm talking to somebody who feels like they're in last place. Listen, they may finish first, but they're not running your race. Are you convinced? When Ida got on that finish line, when Ida got at that starting line, she was convinced she was going to get to the finish line. When Ida took her first step, she was convinced she was going to take a second step. And when she took the second step, she was convinced that she would take a third. And she was convinced that she was going to continue to step until she crossed the finish line, despite everyone else finishing ahead of her. She said, I may not finish first, but I'm going to finish my race. Are you convinced?